Hi, good evening. A very warm welcome, everyone, to yet another learning session from the Outreach Collective. I am Ankur Bora, your host for the evening, and today we have a very interesting session planned on a topic which has been on our minds as career counselors, as university advisors, even as people associated in the field of helping students transition from school to universities. We often face this challenge. And my personal experience of working with Ashoka and Jindal and subsequently with heading the uh, one of the business verticals at Cialfo in India was that the parents find it very stressful. Students find it very stressful to raise funds for their education. And especially if it's international education, there is substantial amount of money involved. It's not always that the students are going to the top Ivy League universities. There are different kind of universities, different destinations that are opening up, and there are various bureaucratic challenges, red tape, a lot of things that are unsaid that a student and a parent has to go through. And even us as career counselors sometimes face those issues because we are expected to have answers to all those problems and issues that the student find in their journey while they are transitioning to universities, maybe in India or abroad. So I'm so happy. I mean, we have two of our TOC members here today who work in this space and doing some fantastic work themselves. And Mangesh is no stranger to TOC. He has been, as I was saying in initial remarks, that Mangesh, I really love what he has been posting in the WhatsApp group. I think every week or 2 weeks he posts some information about the education loan landscape, the financial landscape. So I really had this session in mind for quite some time, and I'm so happy that we could have also Arindam, who is doing some fantastic work himself from EduFund, come in also to do a joint session with Mangesh today. So we'll start this session with about 20 to 25 minutes presentation from Mangesh about financial literacy. Post that, I'll have some Q&A for Arindam. At any point of time, I will encourage, as is the norm in TOC, I will encourage all of you to type in your feedback, right? Ask your questions. We may not be able to answer your questions then and there, but subsequently, when we reach the audience Q&A session, I'll try to take your questions up. Or if if the speakers have the time and the bandwidth, they may answer your questions in the chat itself. So have a great session, everyone. We look forward to having you through the next 60 minutes. And as I said again in my initial remarks, all of you must be aware that this session will be recorded and put on our social media handles on TOC, and maybe some of us will be sharing this in our personal capacity as well. So it's a very warm welcome to both Mangesh and Arindam. Mangesh, I will request you to probably start with a short
Yeah,
introduction about yourself, a brief profile about the work that you are doing and what brought you here, and then subsequently in your presentation. Over to you, Mangesh.
thank you, Ankur. Thank you for a wonderful introduction as well as laying the landscape for these next 60 minutes of enriching session which we'll have. Uh, what I've tried to do is try to put together some basic questions which I get asked all the time from counselors as well as students and try to structure that information so that we can all assimilate this in a very short period of time. And of course, we can get into details later on one conversations as well, right? Uh, my company's name is Peaceful Loan. I've interacted with bunch of TOC members already. It precisely comes from what Ankur said, right? There's a lot of anxiety around the entire ecosystem. And to solve for that anxiety, you need some peaceful agent to come in and solve for this problem, right? That's precisely why. The name of the company is Peaceful Loan. Uh, Let me also introduce myself. I purposely made a slide so that, uh, and I always name the slide as "Who am I and why should you listen to me?" Right? Uh, I'm a 2012 IMCAL graduate. I funded my education with an education loan back in 2010 to 12. Uh, Post that, I've worked in corporate sector in various big companies as well as new age startups like Pepsi, Deutsche Bank, Castrol, Bira, Pepperfry. And I founded peacefulloan.com a couple of years back. We've helped close to 340 plus students secure about 70 crores plus education loan. This experience allows me to share a compiled reasons or the questions which continue to get asked in a structured format. And that's what I'm here to share with the entire community. Uh, we Indians have a very societal lens of looking at loans, right? We take loans for homes, we take loans for businesses, we take loans for cars, we take loans for bikes. We culturally take loans for things which we consider as investments and not expense. But more often than not, when we talk about education, it's always classified as an expense where the parents bear the responsibility of graduating or taking the child to post graduation, right? Hence, it's always looked at from an expense lens. Uh, but isn't education probably the highest ROI investment one can make in their life, right? All of us in this community are helping students get there either through our guidance, which I could, in the venture capital term, put it as sweat equity and some money being put behind by parents or by banks, right? In terms of equity capital. So this is a very high return on investment asset class, in my opinion. The very important aspect to look at it is that the cost of education is growing at about 2x the speed or twice the rate of inflation. And hence, there will come a point of time when parents won't be able to shoulder the burden of expensive education. That's already happening for abroad education. That's why we will keep revolving our conversations around abroad education, and it'll be very helpful. Or there's a corollary of that for expensive schools in India as well, right? Uh, Generally, what is the cost of education abroad, right? When you think of education in India, it's generally only tuition fees, right? Because you're living in the same city, cost of living is very low. But when you're thinking of studying abroad, it's tuition fees, living costs, medical insurances, books, laptops, flight tickets back and forth, and minus any scholarship or a part-time job stipend you may receive over there. The good fact, and most of the times which people aren't aware, that education loan covers the entire gamut and it just doesn't only cover the tuition fees. It will also take into account living costs, medical insurances, and all other ancillary expenses, right? So it helps to have education loan fund this entire cost of education versus just the tuition fees, right? It's a possibility. How are students funding the current how are students solving this problem as we speak? One is, of course, their first go to thing is scholarship. Second is self funding by parents or friends and family. Third is part time jobs during the tenure at university. And fourth is education loan, right? That's the last priority in terms of pecking order. Uh, Given an option, people would not want to get there, right? That's how the ecosystem is placed, and that's evident from the numbers in terms of the size of the education loan market versus the size of expenditure done on studying abroad, right? It's close to about uh, 2 lakh crore expenditure for 7.5 lakh students going abroad, but education loan market size is close to 30-40,000 crore, at best 50,000 crores. So it's only 25% of the people who are using education loan as a mechanism of funding their study abroad dream, right? The rest is still being funded by the top three aspects. The key myths which are there about education loan is only people who do not have resources need to take education loan, right? This is fundamentally something which I very passionately write about. Uh, Anybody who's mathematically savvy knows that education loan is a cheaper way of funding their child's education versus breaking their investment, then paying taxes, and then deploying that money in education. Mathematical, not psychological, right? Mathematically, it's the right way of funding your education. Uh, Second important thing which people keep uh, having that at the back of their mind, most of the parents are worried that I need a big collateral uh, to avail education loan, right? Education loan market is now largely a big chunk of education loan market is unsecured education loan. That means education loans can happen without any collateral being placed as a security. And Just to give you a size, these unsecured loans can be from 50 lakh to all the way till 1.4, 1.5 crore also, depending on what financial background the uh, family and what university the student's going to, right? Third is parents need a very high income to get an education loan. This is another thing that, of course, my income is only 5 to 10 lakh rupees per annum. Can I get an education loan? The answer to that is yes, of course, considering that there are other factors to be taken into account. But education loan is possible. You don't have to give up on education loan just because you have a low income. Most of the banks have minimum income criteria of 35,000 rupees per month and above. So till the time you meet that criteria, it's not a big deal to get an education loan. Both problem is parents have assets but no income. Uh, and should I get an education loan in such case? The answer to that is vehemently no, right? Unless and until you are able to bring in some co-borrower who can prove monthly income, which gives the financial institutions the comfort that there's repayment capability, right? And fourth point I purposely put because India. So fourth point I've purposely put because India is a country of high net worth individuals with low income on paper, right? That's the reality of India, and these people will find it very difficult to get an education loan unless they've done the preparation beforehand, right? Uh, Coming to the next point is how should you fund your education abroad, right? This is what I was talking about. Uh, Funding with loan versus self-funding. What are the key advantages, disadvantages, right? One is a big psychological advantage that students get a sense of being self-made, right? They have the ability to repay this loan, and hence that self-made tag is something which they can carry on their shoulders, very like a chip on the shoulder or a sense of achievement, right? Second important thing is education loans by design in India are a great way of saving tax because for 8 financial years, the entire interest which is charged on education loan becomes tax free, and hence that interest component is deductible from your taxable income. Third is the advantage of TCS, though the TCS advantage is only a cash flow one time advantage because TCS eventually reflects in your income tax filing as a tax input, like any other tax deducted at source. When TDS is deducted from your salary, it eventually shows up as a tax paid at the end of the year, right? TCS is very similar concept. It's a tracker put on every single rupee which is being sent outside India, right? That's why Indian government charges TCS. If it's not for education, then it's 20%. If you're able to prove that it's for the cause of education, then it's 5%. But if you're using education loan, then it's only 0.5%, right? That's still a sizable cash flow saving from the perspective of funds, because if your education is going to cost you 1 crore rupee, then 5% or 10% is a sizable amount, even in terms of arranging that money, right? Of course, self funding has its own set of advantages, but the key disadvantages versus education loan is no tax saving. Second is you have to break investments or plan to break investments every 3 to 6 months, and the additional cost of TCS, right? These are just top of the tip of the iceberg sort of facts which I'm trying to bring forward so that it makes it easy for you guys also to have a conversation with students from the first interaction perspective. Banks ask for tons of documents for education loan. Let's try and understand why they ask it. That's why I put three large buckets here. Students' documents essentially are an indicator of how student has done in its past academics, and the university, country, course which student has opted for is an indicator of uh, what sort of income would the student have at the end of the graduation, right? So these two factors put together give a past academics give a success rate of how student would do in his future education at that university, and hence predictability of future income, right? Uh, Education loan is one of the highest NPA or non-performing asset or high default area for banking ecosystem, to an extent that normal NPAs or default rates are close to 1.5%, but the same for education loan is closer to 8%, and banks have learned from their mistake. Uh, Especially for students going abroad, they don't have any moral obligation or any financial obligation to pay back this loan. And hence, banks will always ask for an Indian co borrower, either in the form of parents, sibling, blood relatives. The co borrower can have a larger definition based on which institute you're applying to. But the idea is if the student uh, is not able to repay, then there is a guarantor slash somebody else who banks can contact, and that person can repay on behalf of student, right? This allows banks to have controlled NPA, and controlled NPA essentially leads to more number of students getting an opportunity to study abroad, right? More number of students getting loans. So we should look at NPA, lowering NPA as an access to more number of students. If the income level of the family is not good enough to get uh, the large amount of loan which is required for that particular instance, then the collateral could really help in terms of extending the limit. Of course, collateral also helps in reducing the interest rate of the loan, but these are the bunch of reasons why so many documentations are asked. Just to summarize this, student's profile gives a sense of future income possible. Parents' profile gives a sense of, yes, this loan can be repaid looking at the income levels of the co-borrower. Property is like a guarantee when you are asking for a loan which is more than what you can afford, right? I've taken example of property, but fixed deposit and other asset classes can also work as collateral, right? It's just to simplify the concept and try and make people understand why so many documents are asked by any bank for an education loan. Now, this is the next set of question which keeps coming very, very frequently. When should I start preparing for education loan, right? Basic understanding of documentation, eligibility criteria you should do even before you start applying, because there's no point uh, having a child being disheartened that they are not able to get there because of financial constraints, versus when you're applying, you're choosing the right set of universities which are well within your reach, right? And hence it's very, very important to consider this aspect right in the beginning of the decision making or counseling. Happy to help. Me and my team are happy to help to any one of you who want to understand what are these basic mathematics around it. And second is, I've seen a lot of students say that, boss, I've applied at 5 different universities. I'm waiting for my dream university to come through, and then I'll start the loan application process. It's an absolute no-no. Uh, you should never do processes like a line process. If that was true, then you should have applied for second, third, fourth university only after getting a dream university rejection, right? The rules which apply of parallel processing to applying at multiple universities also apply for your financial coverage in terms of education. You should apply as soon as you've gotten your first admit. Banks allow you to change your college, university, etc. later on. So it's not a big deal to accommodate your better university later on. But your timeline of education loan kicks in, or the process, the entire application, bank evaluating your credit worthiness can happen in parallel, because unsecured or without collateral education loans take somewhere close to 2 weeks to 3 weeks in peak season time frame, and the same for secured loans sometimes goes from a month to 2 months. You really don't want to incur that time or start that uh, times meter right from your final dream college, and then you have very limited time before your visa dates, and hence don't put that pressure on yourself. Start early. At least it will make your journey peaceful, and you will not settle for anything which comes fast. You will try and get the best optimal result outcome for yourself, right? Sometimes this hurry makes you settle for an NBFC or a higher interest rate loan because you just don't have time. And that's not a wise thing to do, right? You had all the time in the world, but you didn't utilize it. So I would urge all of you to also speak to your students. This is the right time when they must be receiving their admits for fall. This is a great time to start the process. Now, these are the shocking reasons why education loans are difficult or why they get rejected, right? It's a quick overview of how India is, right? India is a 140 crore population country. Couple of years back, only about 6.74 crore, 75 crore people filed income taxes. Out of that, if you were to look at people who actually have 10 lakh rupees and above per annum income is only 0.88 crore. It's less than even a percent of India's population, right? And without even having a 70, 80,000 rupees income per annum, hoping to get a 50, 60, 70 lakh rupees of education loan is a very difficult task, right? The problem lies here. There is a fundamental way how India operates is they would want to declare as low income as possible on paper. This comes back biting for many a parent's case, right? All of us have had clients who are wealthy and who fall under this bracket of uh, high income individuals. It's always easy for them, right? But if you look at the entire gamut of population which is looking at going abroad, then this is an important aspect to keep in mind, right? Why the education loans get rejected very often, right? And uh, many reasons, right? I've just listed top 11 reasons for education loan getting rejected. One is non-availability of co-borrower, right? I don't have a co-borrower. Low income of co-borrower on paper due based on the ITR filing or salary slips or Form 16. Poor CIBIL score. पहले ही प्रॉब्लम है कि बहुत सारे कम लोग आईटीआर फाइल करते हैं ऊपर से पुअर सिबिल स्कोर दैट मींस लाइक इट्स जस्ट funnels getting smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of who's uh, capable of getting loan or who bankers consider as credit worthy, right? Low repaying capacity, incomplete fake documentation, poor past academic record. Students having lower than 60% marks have very high chances of loan getting rejected because the banks and NBFCs think that boss ये आगे जाके वो यूनिवर्सिटी में भी खराब करेगा इसका तो जॉब नहीं लगेगा तो how will that person repay, right? That's how the credit models have evolved, though I have putting it in a very layman term, but the credit models are sophisticated models which have looked at this data for last decade and they have come to the conclusion that the poor past academic is a good indicator of poor future. Country of destination, people going to Russia, Uzbekistan for medical, when they come back to practice in India, most of them don't make it through basic examination. So it's very difficult for bankers to lend to these high risk areas. Uh, and it's not my opinion, it's based on what we've seen as an experience, right? I wouldn't wish anything bad to any student, but bankers have to be conscious of it being a business for them and not uh, just an enabler for students to study, right? Uh, Types of courses selected, STEM management courses are easy to get an education loan versus fashion, maybe uh, filmmaking courses. These are courses where bankers don't have a good amount of data. So it's difficult to get loans for these sort of institutions. Unrecognized institution. We're all seeing what's happening in Canada, what's happening in UK, the kind of efforts, right?
Mangesh,
So
just a 5 minute reminder. Okay. You have
yeah,
five.
yeah, sure. Then applying at multiple financial institutions. Many institutions, as soon as you apply, they will pull your credit score or CIBIL score. They'll see last few weeks where all you have applied. That's an indicator that boss इसने 4 जगह apply किया है, 4 जगह पे reject हुआ रहेगा तभी हमारे पास आए. Gives them a reason to reject your loan, right? So identifying which is the right financial institute for your financial and university and academic profile is very important. And that's where I think the role of EduFund or Peaceful Loan comes in. It's the data and experience which we have, which allows us to uh, do that matching of the profiles with the right financial institution, right? And lastly, the age of student being above 35, right? These are common reasons which I've seen why student loans get rejected. I wanted to go over the four broad categories of lenders in education loan, which is public sector banks, private sector banks, NBFCs, non-INR financing, and some US co-borrowers like Discover, Salome. So this is a broad spectrum, and we've partnered with all of them. If you guys have deeper questions in which bank approves what sort of loan, happy to do a separate session because it's a 1 hour, 1.5 hour long conversation in itself, right? One thing which we should be completely aware of and should be cognizant of, that public sector banks does not mean the education loan is cheaper, right? It's a myth. As you can see, private sector banks turn out to be the cheapest education loans if students come from good financial background, right? Private sector banks are willing to lend more when they meet the right sort of customer profile. Public sector banks are generally chosen by parents when they want to mortgage their property to feel safe, right? That's largely the uh, pros and cons. We can go much deeper into this, but I'll leave it at that. And you all guys know that what service Peaceful Loan provides, right? We help student end to end to get the right education loan, help them operationalize this as well as till the disbursement, right? I would just stop here in the interest of time and hand it over to Ankur so that we give a fair amount of time also to for Arindam to educate all of us, and I can also learn from him. I'm very curious.
Thank you so much, Mangesh, for that wonderful presentation. And I know, I mean, you told me that there is a 1 hour and more than an hour presentation.
Yeah,
Uh, Probably we can revisit that depending on the interest that we generate post this session.
sure,
But
sure.
I would like to bring in Arindam also uh, for this conversation. And there are a few Q&A that, I have with me. I would love to first take it up with Arindam, and then subsequently maybe we can also involve you and others in this conversation. But thank you for that wonderful presentation, really insightful. And I've already seen a couple of messages in WhatsApp saying that really insightful presentation by you. Thank you. So I'd like to bring in Arindam. Arindam, if you can, probably before I jump into the Q&A, briefly introduce yourself and the company
Sure,
that you're co-founded.
sure. Uh, Thank you, Mangesh. I really enjoyed your presentation. Very well laid out.
Thanks, Anandam.
Yeah. So, well, hi, I'm Arindam. Just a brief introduction about me. Well, I'm in Ahmedabad. We are an Ahmedabad-based company. EduFund is. Uh, my personal background, I was lucky enough, I guess, to go for my undergrad to US almost 20 years ago when very few people did undergrad. So I did my undergrad from Bloomington, Indiana, Bloomington, worked a few years in the US, came back to India, worked in Reliance in asset management. Then I went for my master's to Princeton, worked in a hedge fund, and then came to India and met up with my co-founder, Ela, who is now my wife, and we decided to start EduFund. Uh, Looking back at my journey, I think I come from very heavy finance and asset management background, and the idea of jumping into education and the idea behind EduFund was we often talk about impact, right? I think impact is a word we often throw around very loosely, and I look at it this way, right? What's the foremost form of impact you create on a family or an individual? It's through education, right? Not only in the classroom but also the peers, right? That is your one of the highest level of impact, and it stays with us. Unfortunately, education and quality education comes at a very steep cost, right? I think Mangesh mentioned that education as an asset class has an inflation which is twice of your household inflation. It's absolutely right, right? And that was our motivation. Like, how can we help parents and students actually go through this massive inflation when it comes to quality education and help them embark on their journey, right? And that's the highest level of impact. So that was the motivation behind EduFund, and that's what we are trying to do at EduFund.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you. I mean, that's some, story of founding EduFund and your own personal journey from US to India, and the your co-founding it with along with your wife. Amazing. So happy to have you here with us. I mean, I will just quickly jump into now the Q&A because we are also running
Sure,
short of time. Uh,
sure,
and these questions will be in no particular order, but in my
sure.
own
Shoot
sense,
away.
as an
Shoot away.
outsider, uh, could you break down the essentials of financial planning for a student education path? I mean,
Correct.
where does one start thinking about financial planning? If I'm a parent, when should I start thinking about, okay, I should start thinking about how I'm going to fund my kids' education.
Correct. I'll break down the financial planning into two separate buckets, right? I think what is which is harder is the financial planning for undergraduate. And simply because undergrad happens over a longer duration and is usually self funded. When it comes to undergrad, the good thing is that most of us, right, सारे लोग usually 18 साल पे undergrad जाते हैं. So it's a very defined outcome. So you actually, as a parent, you have an 18-year runway to plan for undergrad. Masters is somebody goes at 20, 24, somebody goes at 30, somebody even goes at 35, right? There's no fixed point for masters. So it becomes harder to plan masters. Also, I think you don't need to plan a lot for masters. Why? A lot of us have been working for a few years. You probably have some savings. You're also more credit worthy. And also universities in general, I'm talking of studying abroad, they are much more generous when it comes to giving an aid to master student. So masters में दुख ज़्यादा नहीं होता है. The
सही
main
बात.
problem is undergrad. Even if you go to like a very average US university for undergrad, it's 2 crores, right? I mean, given how wealthy India is or our income levels, right? 2 crores is massive, right? I mean, it's massive.
बिल्कुल.
So this is when you should plan, and you start planning early, sooner the better. So the answer is start planning as soon as possible. We've got parents who are planning 10 years before time, right? 12 years before.
I mean, this is amazing. I mean, as I was saying, I have worked with a lot of Indian universities, and then my last assignment with an edtech company working in the space of helping students apply to universities, transition to universities. And I still go to schools to do sessions, and students will come up to me. I'll ask them, where do you want to study? And they'll generally say US, UK, Canada, and I ask them, do you know the cost of education in US? And most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, they are not aware. And they're like, जो भी होगा पापा देख लेंगे. तो आई एम लाइक, पापा तो देख लेंगे, यूर इन ग्रेड 12, वो कब देखेंगे? और जब उन्हें बिल और पेरेंट्स को जब हम बात करते हैं, जब पेरेंट्स को बताते हैं कि दिस इज द कॉस्ट ऑफ एजुकेशन, आई एम श्योर माई
Correct.
अदर करियर काउंसलर कैन ऑल्सो चिप इन हियर दैट दिस इज द कॉस्ट. आई मीन इट रियली बिकम्स आई ओपनर फॉर देम. आई थिंक इंडिया में इस चीज की भी अवेयरनेस नहीं है कि यूएस की एजुकेशन की कॉस्ट 2 करोड़ से ऊपर है अंडर ग्रेजुएट में. एंड यू आर
Correct.
एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. आई
Correct.
मीन
I mean, I'm not even talking of the tier ones. Even tier two is 2 crores, right?
या
Tier one तो 4 crore जितना
बिल्कुल.
है.
Bilkul, bilkul. And I think that there lies in the gap and the complete, I think, complete information blackout for our kids in schools. Financial literacy के ऊपर parents के लिए भी काम करना चाहिए. And I mean, you said there are some parents who are working for 10 years, investing to 10 years, 12 years से invest कर रहे हैं अपने बच्चे के education के लिए. I think those will be still a few amongst many that are not even aware of the cost. And because
Yes,
sometimes, yeah.
you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah. So, but how do you, I mean, how will you motivate other parents? I mean, this, as I said, this session will be recorded and I'm sure many parents will listen to it. I mean, how can this financial planning, mitigate the cost of rising education? Education का जो cost है वो बढ़ ही रहा है. So how does it help
Correct.
in even managing that inflation aspect?
Correct. So I think the one very important thing to understand at the beginning is that whether आप इंडिया में पढ़ना चाहते हो या बाहर पढ़ना चाहते हो, this cost is rising. India also actually has universities now जो 25-30 लाख मांग रहे हैं, right? Which, I mean, I'm 40. When I was growing up, it was unheard of, right? 25-30 lakh to study in India is, I mean, we never even thought about it, right? So this rising cost is on both sides of the ocean, right? Whether you're going abroad or in India. Now, having said that, I think we've got what 90,000 odd parents who are saving on our platform, right? And the one great motivator for them is what we've done is a very simple college calculator, right? आओ तुम्हें जहां पढ़ना हो जो पढ़ना हो put it in the calculator, right? You could even say not sure. If you're a young kid, you don't know what will he study. You can pick not sure on the calculator and say ki, okay, I also don't know where he will go. He will just go abroad or he will be in India. It will throw out some value. So you actually know what will be the financial burden, right? And you can start planning. One of the, I think the only way to motivate parents is through literacy, right? And I think this is where this community is very useful, where, I mean, you're a community of counselors, teachers, and influencers, right? I mean, this cost being prohibitively high and getting higher, I think you're the right ambassadors to speak and help parents on this,
So if you
because
can,
parents are just unaware.
Arindam, if you can
Please
maybe
go
talk
ahead.
about what exactly EduFund does and what is the company about?
Correct. So EduFund does two things, right? I think the first thing that we intend to do is educate parents ki bhai, as per your goal and dreams, itna financial cost aega into the future. That's the first thing we do, the literacy aspect. Now that we've educated you, ki okay, if Ankur wants to go to study to US after 10 years to blah 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 universities, it will be 3 crores. Then we will show Ankur how can he chase 3 crores. Now, I've often seen there are three types of approach that people do. One is literally लोग बैठे रहेंगे कि scholarship मिल जाएगा last minute तक. क्यों मिलेगा तुम्हें, right? I mean, why? Right? I mean, why will somebody come and give you 100% scholarship, right? Second, also, while we have loans, right? Is it prudent to take 100% loan? Is it financially smart? Is it also easy to take loan, right? And the third is savings, right? So we tell a parent, you need a little bit of everything, right? Because that is how you build a financial model. So we actually will say, out of the 3 crores jo Ankur ko chahiye tha, he will probably, depending on the pedigree of the university, he will get 30 lakhs ka scholarship, maybe 1 crore ka loan, and the rest 1 crore savings, right? So this is his optimal mix, and then start this journey. So because remember, in this journey, scholarship and loan, both, an individual never controls. You never control how much scholarship you will get or your child will get, and you never control how much loan you will get. The only thing that you control in this journey is your own savings. तो पहले उस पे ध्यान दो, बाकी का दो बाद में करो.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
And scholarships को लेके भी, I mean, I think scholarship is the most exploited word in education marketing. Every university, be it Indian or international, talks about scholarships. So it's one form of a saying we are offering discount. And I
Correct.
was
Correct.
वो
You're
discount
right.
नहीं बोल के वो
You're right.
scholarship word use करते हैं हम लोग.
Correct.
That's the honest truth of this industry.
Correct.
uh, Even when
Correct.
I was Mangesh raised an important point that there are very few people in India that even file taxes, income taxes, and it's very
Correct.
hard for
Correct.
universities even to dole out those scholarships because most of the times documents are not complete. And I worked with Indian universities, but international universities, में तो there are more challenges because if you do not have documents, they are
Correct.
just not ready to listen into you. Maybe Indian universities can understand the context and you have local connections and you can come to the university campus and fight for your own cases. But I think one of the another questions that is I want to raise here is what are the some of the misconceptions about student loans that people have, right? क्या वो misconceptions रहते हैं लोगों पे?
So I think the biggest misconception is that कि loan मिल जाएगा, right?
हम्म.
Everybody assumes मुझे loan मिल जाएगा, right? Remember, somebody has to underwrite you. There's also a certain amount of time that it takes to get your loan, right? So I think Mangesh pointed this out where people wait till the last moment. So सबसे पहले people assume कि मुझे loan मिल जाएगा, right? And number two, they wait till the last moment, right? So dono, I think people need to know exactly that both of these things are at play. And third, right, I think the biggest assumption of this loan market is that people sometimes worry so much about getting the loan, they don't think enough about servicing the loan, right? Boss, loan वापिस लौटाना भी है,
ये भी बात सही है.
right?
तो उसके ऊपर you have some data, I mean how many people are actually able to return those loans, because ये तो आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि लोग लोन लेने का समझते हैं, बट आजकल की जो इकोनॉमी है, स्पेशली ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी, इज
Correct.
नॉट bright. And then in this
Correct.
economy, how are people even, I mean, that's another part of financial planning that students should be aware of, that how will be they able
Correct.
to
So
return that
I don't
particular.
have data with me, but I can dig up and share with you offline. So I think one very interesting thing that I think about uh, servicing a loan, right, is we always talk about the job market is not the same, uh, right? And I find it fascinating. People will say the job market is not the same, and they will say कि भाई तू loan ले ले, right? They don't go together, right? A lot of jobs that used to be there, right,
Yeah.
are not there anymore. Even like, well, I my master's was from an Ivy League, and I see our employment data. It hasn't really moved in the last 10 years, right? If Princeton is struggling with salary across iBanking jobs, then trust me, there is a problem, right? So, and remember, it's also the pedigree. Not everyone's going to a Yale or a Princeton. बाकी लोगों का क्या, right? So they are taking this 70 lakh rupee loan, 80 lakh rupee loan, thinking कि मुझे $1 lakh का नौकरी मिल जाएगा. Those jobs have gone, right? That poor guy is probably
Absolutely.
back in India in 3 years and working at 20 lakh rupee salary. Then this
बहुत
math
है,
is impossible.
बहुत है, ऐसे बहुत केसेस
Yeah,
मेरे अपने
correct.
एनेक्डोटल एविडेंस है मेरे पास.
करेक्ट. फिर ये मैथ इज इम्पॉसिबल. दिस इज लाइक लास्ट ओवर में 40 रन चाहिए, फिर ऐसा मैथ हो जाता है, राइट?
Yeah.
So yeah, so this market has really, and the fascinating thing is in our massive student loan market, which is becoming bigger and bigger, most of the loans, they are very very uh, young, which means they have not been serviced back. They are just because this market really expanded from 2018 2019 onwards.
Yeah, because I see a lot of new
Yeah,
companies coming in, a lot of
correct,
ventures being set
correct,
up in this space of
correct,
loans
correct,
and financial planning. As
correct,
I said
correct,
initially, I am as an outsider seeing that there is a lot of interest now. I think it's more to
correct,
do with the growth of international students going abroad from India.
correct,
Year on year, we
correct,
are seeing
absolutely.
multiple digit growths, and people are getting excited by that. But I'm sure it's not. I mean, you would have your own challenges, right? I mean, it's not a straight away, जैसे बोलते हैं वेंचर फंडिंग की कैपेसिटी में कि मतलब पैसा आज डाला तो 3 महीने में डबल हो जाएगा, ऐसा वाला तो आपकी स्पेस में भी काम नहीं होगा. आई मीन, इज देयर अ स्कोप ऑफ,
Correct.
I mean, just talking from a business venture point of view in this, because I see a lot of companies coming up, but what is the business model actually? And is it sustainable in the short term, long term? क्या plan है आप इस space में?
So I think suddenly I see everyone is very bullish about student loans, right?
Yeah.
Is this a big enough opportunity for multiple companies? I absolutely think so. But I
Okay.
also think it will change how we are thinking about it, because remember, a lot of this growth number that we are talking about, and everybody who became bullish, these are growth numbers after COVID years. Those are one-time numbers, right?
Yeah.
You are not
Absolutely.
going to triple every year, right? I
Yeah.
think that is also part of the realization that the edtech industry is facing now, right?
Hmm.
Like हर साल 3x धंधा नहीं होता है, right?
ये बिल्कुल सही.
That's a 1 year, yeah, right? So businesses don't grow 3x every year. They
एंड
don't.
यू यूज द राइट एग्जांपल एडटेक, क्योंकि एडटेक वाला मामला तो इंडिया
Correct,
में काफी अटका पड़ा है आजकल. तो उसके बाद
correct,
तो सारे लोग, इट हैज हैड अ repercussions for a lot of other new ventures that were being set up in the education sector. अभी तो काफी. So I just wanted to take just a top of the line feedback from you on what is happening in this sector and if it's headed in the right direction. And I'll quickly like to bring in Mangesh also. Mangesh, you can also chip in about some of the questions that I asked Arindam, and we were having nice discussion. You can also talk about peaceful loans. I mean, that's a very interesting name. But
yeah, I
why?
really like the name. I
Yeah,
really like the name. Yeah,
loans.com.
Thank
So
you.
आप भी थोड़ा बता सकते हैं, your feedback on whatever we were discussing. If you want to chip in, have some comments on what my conversation with the Arindam was.
Oh, see, I completely agree with most of the things Arindam said, and hence I don't see any uh, great point unless you have a different point of view, right? I will just speak from a trend perspective, right? This is similar journey which developed countries have seen much before us, right? The cost of education going higher and becoming steeper. In India, the largest retail loan category is home loan, which is like 14% of the total loans disbursed in India, right? In India, education loan is about 0.7% of the entire retail loan category. And you will be surprised in US, education loan is the second largest loan after mortgages or home loans, right? So there's a serious headroom and headroom from a business perspective. And that's why so many big names like Tata Capital, Aditya Birla Capital, Kotak Mahindra Bank, etc., jumping into this game. Because I fundamentally believe that this builds India, right? We can't define which family we are born into, but we can define how talented we are and where we get with our education, right? So it's a choice which every family has, every student has. But for that to happen, of course, the products and the offerings will have to evolve, and the natural forces of education becoming more expensive, parents won't be able to afford it, and banks, NBFCs will come together to plug this gap, because India, being one of the youngest population, has to study, right? Higher education has to happen. And we can't really have a drop off from that 27-28% of higher education conversion from graduation dropping to
Yeah.
yeah, dropping to 10% because पैसा नहीं है, right? पैसा
Yeah.
आएगा, जहाँ जरूरत है वहाँ पैसा आता है. Lending is the oldest profession in the world, right? So जहाँ there is a chance of making interest in a safe way, I'm sure the lending will continue to expand. Yes, there will be innovative ways found. There will be areas where banks and NBFCs will work, new startups will work. But this is here to stay. And this will define, say, 10 years down the line, how the education is looked at and how education is funded. The second aspect which I see, which will change drastically, is I think all of us are on the other side of Gen Z consumers, and we are very diametrically opposite, right? We are okay being rejected by banks. We are okay being rejected in life generally. Uh, the younger generation is not, right? Neither are they patient with all this bureaucracy, red tape, kitna time lagega, utna time lagega. These aspects are bound to change, right? Uh, Consumer will come first. They are impatient because everything else they get in no time, right? And hence, a lot of these things will go down a path where I envision 10 years down the line, you should be able to get education loan in, like, say, 10 minutes, right? Not these bloody 10 days, 1 month, 2 months, right? Of course, that's the dream with which we started Peaceful Loan, but even statistically, trend wise, I see it going in that direction.
I mean, one of the limits, I mean, there are two things that I want to chip into here. I mean, you talked about the US model, and we have heard news from US about the debt crisis, the education loan crisis that is happening, that so many students are under debt and they're not able to service their loans. So, I mean, A, what are the lessons that we are learning from US? Or if there are any lessons from the US market that we plan to, because, you know, I think most of the things that we are trying to now, as we are moving towards consumerism, and you touched upon that कि आजकल की Gen Z को सब कुछ immediately चाहिए, Zomato generation है, they don't want to wait. But then, as Arindam was saying, they also have to service back those loans. So वो
Correct.
जो दोनों का एक ये जो understanding है, and you are also direct. NEP says that currently our gross enrollment ratio is about 27%. In the coming years, the government plans to make it 50%. That means more capacity, more universities will be coming up, not only in इंडिया में तो आएंगी, प्राइवेट स्पेस में बहुत ज्यादा आएंगी. एंड अरिंदम अगेन वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट इंडिया में कॉस्ट ऑफ एजुकेशन इज ग्रोइंग सो हाई. I mean, I have myself seen that curve over the last decade of my life where I have worked in higher education sector in India, that the cost of education is, and the universities are now more and more, even the private universities want students to take loans. If a student used to comes to a director of admissions office, we definitely look for partners in terms of banks, NBFCs that we can partner with, and they can say, hey, student, you can go to this bank or you can go to this person, and because scholarships are now again being limited. Not every you are again, both of you are mentioning scholarships are not that easy to come by. I mean, universities have a limit. So there are a lot of factors, and I think now that I've heard both of you, I think now I understand this space a little bit better. But I think what I was seeing is that definitely I agree this sector is here to stay, grow, and you're absolutely correct. But what are the lessons that we should learn from the West and implement? Maybe we can go to Arindam and then come back to Mangesh.
Sure. I think the one thing that we should learn, right, from this entire student loan debacle that has gone through in the US, is that we should really underwrite loans well, right? Right. I mean, if you say कि loan ले लो, कोई ना नहीं बोलेगा, right? Nobody ever says no to a loan. Nobody, right? So you need to underwrite well, right? You need to know which degrees can actually be job worthy, right? Are those degrees going to be around, right? I remember when I first landed up as a freshman in 2000, I used to meet people who were studying all types of random degrees, right? And I used to wonder, ये क्या नौकरी करेंगे? And I used to always wonder. And
सही बात है.
later on, I used to find a lot of them would start working at a store or whatever. Right now, if you're working at a store, you are not going to service $130,000 of loan or $150,000 of loan, right? So instead of just bankrolling or underwriting because you need a loan book growth, start funding degrees that are job worthy, right? Start funding universities that have credibility, that can get you a job, right? Just taking a loan, going to some random university in Canada won't get you a job, right? फिर आपको गांव का जमीन बेच के वही लोन चुकाना पड़ेगा. क्या मतलब हुआ?
You're
So
absolutely
I think
correct.
it
And
all also,
I think, sorry, I just want to, just give you 5 seconds. You're absolutely correct. This is exactly what is happening. I mean, I'm not named the school, but I recently met a principal of a leading school chain in Punjab. And they have 22 schools, and the principal literally was crying and saying, "Ki, people are selling off their farmlands. They are taking loans. Students are going there, but the college that they are going to are substandard colleges. The courses are substandard, and the moment they land up in Canada, they are in debt. They are not able to service back the loans. They are ending up at petrol stations, trying
correct.
to mug up money. And the aim, which was initially to learn, now has shifted to service the debt, and so that family can survive. I mean, that's a truly on ground situation. What you're saying.
See, loan in theory, and as Mangesh said, right, it's very smart. If you play the loan wave correct as a consumer, right, आपको tax benefit मिल रहा है, आपको TCS मिल रहा है, benefit मिल रहा है. If you play all of that very smartly and correctly, loan is a great tool, right? However, very few people, retail people, right, all of us come as retail consumers, right, actually understand and handle loan well, right? Be it any type of loan, right? Most people don't do well with leverage. So education, when you take leverage, is very important, right? You can get a dollar loan in India 13-14% के. How many people even know कि आप 13-14% का डॉलर लोन लेते हो? That is actually 17-18% क्योंकि डॉलर appreciates. How many people even know that, right?
नहीं पता.
If you're taking 17-18% loan, तो साहूकार का पैसा है. That's
Correct.
ridiculous rate. वो देते देते यानी जवानी ढल जाएगी आपकी.
बिल्कुल
17%
सही.
का लोन देते देते.
बिल्कुल
So,
सही.
I mean, education, I mean, it comes down to educating the consumer, right? We all say KYC, know your client. It is exactly this, right? Tell him, know your loan, right? Know your lender, right? It comes to education.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think
Mangesh. Yeah.
I completely agree with Arindam. The only thing which I am on the fence with is Indian parents, the families will have to psychologically accept to live with loans, which we don't, right? We are a saving economy. The
Mm,
psychological change of, okay, boss, ये loan मेरे साथ lifetime रहेगा, and this is the cost of getting a better opportunity, right? Is something we'll have to learn to live with, which we don't, right? We hardly speak to our children about financials or financial education at home, right? Very few times we have that conversation. So this becomes a burden, but that psychological shift, as I said, forces of nature, it becoming more expensive will force us to do that. But that change we'll have to uh, accept.
wonderful. Wonderful. So I think that's about the time we had. I mean, I'm looking at the clock. Uh, if there are any questions from the audience, we are happy to take them. Anybody can use, you want to type in your questions or any comments or feedback, or you can even unmute yourself. Please do that. And we can, wait for another 60 seconds. I can have final comments in meanwhile from both Mangesh and Anindam on, you know, their own companies. I mean, because we are a counseling community, there are over 300 plus counselors who are part of the outreach collective. There are over 1,000 plus people that are connected to us, either which ways through WhatsApp groups or our email databases, and we'll be sharing this recording with all of them. I mean, Arindam, your message to, to the career counseling community, to the educators, as you said, we are influencers, we talk to these students, we help them with their applications. But most of the times, the financial planning is one part that we may be missing out on and we do not have the expertise in. So, how can we collaborate with your companies? I mean, how can counselors
Correct.
work with you? I mean, Arindam, first you and then Mangesh.
Sure. So I think, yeah, as I mentioned, right, like I look at all of you as very important in a student's journey, right? And one thing that we don't talk often about is money, right? Money is a very important
Yeah.
conversation to have, right? This entire dream building exercise, money is very important. So I would really request you to educate, use your influence and educate parents and students, right, about the cost, right? And I think Sagar, he leads all, I mean, our partner communication and partnership. So I think anytime anybody wants to work with us on awareness, student education, awareness on cost, right? Please, we'll be more than happy to come and speak at a school, come and speak to your, so whatever, right? I mean, we are open. We are here to educate parents and yeah, get this movement going. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Arindam. Yes, so
thanks a lot. Thank you.
Sagar is an active member of TOC, has been doing some fantastic
Yes.
work. I mean, right from the onset of TOC days, I mean, he has been with us, and I'm so happy that he is with you. I mean, I'm sure he is an asset wherever he works,
We are
and
also very happy. We are
yeah,
very happy.
yeah.
Yeah. And Ankur, where are you based? I'll meet you. I haven't somehow I've
I'm
not
in
met
Delhi.
you.
I'm in Delhi
मिलते
NCR.
हैं, ठीक है.
Yeah,
Done. Next
I'm
time I'm
happy.
there, we'll catch up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a
Mangesh,
call. I'm going to bounce off. Hey,
perfect,
nice talking to you, Mangesh. Nice
perfect.
meeting you.
My
Thank you,
wisdom.
guys.
Thank you
Thanks.
so
Bye.
much for your
Yeah,
time.
bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Mangesh, your remarks, final remarks on how counselors can work with you, and what will be your pitch to them.
At the cost of me maybe being politically not so correct, uh, don't be afraid of this. This is an important angle of education, right? I've spoken to so many counselors who are afraid of this financial aspect, even in their head, and hence don't want to address it. Use us, our teams, as your support system to uh, not just help educate yourself, your teams, firstly, so that they can answer the first set of questions which come to them. I'm more than happy to do these sessions every week with counselors, their team, so that they can get educated how to answer the questions which student, their parents ask. And secondly, if there is here and now problem, more than happy to solve it, right? Alongside all these counselors. So treat us as your extended teams, reach out to us. Uh, Finance, I think all financial service, in my opinion, is somebody using jargon so that the layman feels afraid and is willing to take
Absolutely.
appropriate decisions, right? Let us solve that. Let's bridge us that gap. We understand the jargons. We can simplify those for you. That was one of the efforts in my PPT today. So allow us to simplify. Don't be afraid. We are there with you. We'll help you at every single step, whether it's education, knowledge, helping students for the problem which is here and now, right? Always possible. Feel free to directly reach out to me. I'm more than happy to speak to any one of you and solve the problem.
Amazing. Thank you, Mangesh, for that wonderful session. And I want to also acknowledge Arindam and Sagar for their presentations and contribution in making this conversation so fruitful and informative. Thank you to all the audience that came in and listening to this conversation. Uh, uh, Truly, as we say in TOC, the learning continues, and we'll be continuing with a series of webinars and information sessions over the coming weeks. Also, so keep coming back, keep learning, keep growing, and keep contributing back to the community. It's a goodbye from me. Thank you so much, and have a good night, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, Ankur. Thank you, Bhakti.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.